Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Rocío de Diego Cordero. I'm an assistant professor and I'm working in the University of Seville in Spain. I want to make you a short presentation about one of my researches with migrant working population entitled Occupational Health in Migrant Workers. What are the issues? First of all, Spain is the fourth country with the largest numbers of immigrants in Europe, resulting in a large proportion of migrant workers. At least 6,000 migrants have reached Spain, Ceuta, enclave for the neighboring Morocco, a record number over a single day, Spanish official says. Go to see here.
Spain has deployed soldiers to the land border of its North African enclave of Ceuta after an estimated 6,000 people arrived there yesterday. The government says it's now returned nearly half of them to Morocco. Many of the migrants gathered at the border fence. Witnesses said Moroccan police appeared to do nothing to intervene, fueling speculation that the relaxing of the border controls is a political move by Morocco. Guy Hedgeco reports from Madrid.
Ceuta has long been a magnet for African migrants desperate to reach this European city. But the influx of an estimated 6,000 migrants on Monday is unprecedented. Many floated round the border fence at low tide on makeshift boats. Others swam round. One man drowned, but a number of migrants were able to cross on foot. There were several hundred children, and in some cases entire families came. The vast majority of those who crossed were Moroccan, and all of them were seeking a better life.
When you have no money and you have to pay your rent and you have to take care of your children and parents, you can't afford to be scared.
As you see, all the young people want to leave the country. There is no work.
Spain has reinforced security along the border fence between Ceuta and Morocco, and it has even deployed the army. But Ceuta's emergency services have been overwhelmed by the arrivals. A warehouse used to quarantine migrants can only hold 200 people. Spain says it has started sending migrants back to Morocco. However, relations between the two countries are tense, something many see as the reason why Moroccan border guards apparently allowed the migrants to cross in the first place. Guy Hedgeco, BBC News, Madrid.
Well, the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has cancelled a planned trip to Paris due to the crisis and will travel to Ceuta shortly. He's promised to do everything possible to get the situation under control.
Mi prioridad como presidente del Gobierno de España.
At this time, my priority as the Spanish Prime Minister is to guarantee transit on the border with Morocco, provide the cities of Ceuta and Melilla with all the necessary means to solve the humanitarian crisis that this arrival of people implies, and proceed to the immediate return of anyone who has entered Ceuta and Melilla irregularly.
Now, I've been speaking to Olivia Sundberg-Diaz from the European Policy Centre. She believes a diplomatic row between Morocco and Spain might be behind the sudden influx of migrants in Ceuta.
This rise in arrivals comes against the background of a rise in diplomatic tensions between Spain and Morocco over the past few weeks. This has been fueled by the fact that Brahim Ghali, the leader of the Polisario Front in the Western Sahara, was treated in Spain a few weeks ago for COVID-19. Morocco strongly opposed this and warned that there may be consequences. So while it is still very unclear exactly what has happened, there are some sources that suggest that Moroccan border guards may have relaxed their border control measures as a result, as a sort of act of blackmail towards Spain for its political decision. So it's still unclear what has happened. Spain has stated that first and foremost it needs to evaluate what went wrong, but this could certainly be a factor. And then on top of this, there's of course a wide range of broader structural factors that may lead to people to want to make the move. This includes economic instability, the impact of COVID-19, the fact that borders have been closed for a long time and international mobility has been severely constrained. And now some of those restrictions are beginning to ease. So it's probably a combination of these factors.
And some people have been sent back, but a number still remain in Spain. What is being done to facilitate them? And where are they, do you know?
Exactly. So there's been a mix of measures. On one hand, Spain has returned 2,700 people so far to Morocco. This is a practice known as devoluciones en caliente, or immediate returns. And it's really not new, but it's a very concerning practice on behalf of Spain, because it raises questions about whether procedural safeguards are being provided for those people before their return to Morocco, whether they have access to legal aid, whether their individual case for asylum is getting a chance to be heard. So there's a lot of questions about what's happening to those people. On the other hand, some others have not yet been returned, and one particular question concerns what will happen to minors. At least 1,500 people that have crossed into Ceuta from Morocco are children, and they tend to not be subject to immediate returns to Morocco. Spain has stated that it will act in the best interest of the child, that it will evaluate their situation on a case-by-case basis. But for the moment, their situation is quite uncertain. And the big question is exactly what will be done. So far, they have been sent to emergency accommodation in industrial warehouses, but the reception conditions, the accommodation conditions there are really subpar. They are already overwhelmed. So a lot of advocates and human rights organizations are asking what other protections are available. And for example, whether there's a possibility to transfer them to the mainland where better accommodation is suitable. So still a pending question.
In addition, women constitute 48% of international migrants who suffer poor working conditions linked to the position they mainly occupy within 13 fields, such as the domestic sector and caregiver services. In this connection, Spain is the second country in Europe with the highest number of domestic workers. Go to see the real-life tale of a migrant domestic worker here.
KE Yamabata Teku Hipo Popular Atagi Duma Afu Ye Obuiba Bunido Obuini Kunmide Seconino Ye Papo Yese Do Ye Do Buihoko Ye Kuki Obala Kobeonino Watano Somula Yugule Atago Babanino Takwedayami Ula Yakabale Su Tiagora Di Ami Yuko Ato the Brony Yitaniliva Yaba Yutala Itatamuago Pay Yehesu Tiagora Nino Ita Omu Potasa Odiyala Hebele da su tiga gorani baba udo datu dato do dabu ple do wapo ade tu tele su tiga gora dito yadewe do wapo ade tu tele su tiga gora dito yadewe
It also should be noted that during the COVID pandemic, women have been the most affected, making up more than 54% of the total infected. They have been frequently working under unsafe and arduous occupational health safety conditions after without the necessary personal protective equipment, and many being exposed to significant risk due to their direct personal contact with patients with COVID. Go to see here again.
My employer forced me to stay home for almost 3 months. You cannot go anywhere. You cannot meet your friends. Many people comes and go to the house, and not even wearing a mask. I can't refuse. I can't complain because I'm being scared to lose my job. They will terminate me. I lost my job, and for being lost my job is also losing my family future.
I was working there 19 hours every single day. They only paid me $600 every month. My holiday was start 10 o'clock. And after when I came back home, so, and they still say, oh, you should work. We are going out, so you should take care of our kids. So, yeah, so it's even the holiday was not holiday.
If you don't have like a good working environment, you tend to like stay with the family just because you have to stay um, employed.
Because we don't have a permanent residency, that's why our employers taking advantage and we are being abused.
I don't want to lose my job, of course, because I have my family in the Philippines. I'm only the one supporting them. You think of you might lose your income, you will not get paid, or you lose your job because you're ill. I can really straight telling them that I am really sick.
I know that if I get sick, no one can take care of me as well. I'm alone here in Canada.
I didn't know what to do because I was laid off. I didn't know whether I've been fired completely or not. Some of us care workers, we don't have like open work permit. You're stuck with same employer. You also have your family back home to support, so they depend on you.
is already 18 and 16. And it's really hard because like I miss most of their life already. And I want to provide them with good life, you know, the promise of Canada.
Because of the time difference, it's hard because sometimes they need you, but they cannot reach you because you are working and you cannot even hold your phone. Some employers didn't want you to have the phones with you. Family separation is devastating because it's a mental and physically and emotionally.
We deserve benefits as caregivers, and we work very hard to support Canadians' family, and we contribute to Canadian society and economy.
We need landed status upon arrival.
We need permanent residency so we can take our rights.
We care workers need paid sick days for our own health, for our safety, and for the well-being and safety of the family we were taking care of.
We need to be together. We need the family together. We need the status. Status for all, landed status now.
So this is because we will investigate the pattern of the working condition of immigrants living in Spain and understand how these factors can affect their health. A qualitative, exploratory, and descriptive design was employed, and data were analyzed using a phenomenological approach. Data collection consists of semi-structured interviews with immigrants living in southern Spain between 2018-2021. Participants were recruited through contacts with 5 non-governmental organizations. Based on inclusion criteria, our study sample included 141 participants. The interview script was made up 2 parts, including questions about sociodemographic characteristics and details about worker labor characteristics. In brief, workers were asked about work characteristics, daily work conditions and schedules, type of occupational hazard, occupational training, occupational health events and issues, injury and or illness, and need for work leave. Our finding pointing out, in general, 4 employment sectors were most commonly occupied by these immigrants, including caregiving and food service for women, and agriculture and construction for men. Most immigrants were from Latin America, either unemployment or working part-time jobs and not hired under an employment contract. Most workers in low qualified jobs and were exposed to occupational hazards such as falls for hanging, manual handling of material, and psychological training. The lack of training on occupational risk prevention and labor rights were related to allow identification of war-related situations, leading to a negative impact on the health of the immigrant. In caregiver sector, mainly occupied by women, the main risks identified were biological risks, physical attacks, falls, wound and musculoskeletal complaints related to handling patients and carrying out household chores. Most of them have not taken an occupational health test and did not report accidents occurring in the workplace for fear of losing their jobs. The main health problems were related to physical and mental health, such as musculoskeletal disease and stress. During the current COVID pandemic, women have been the main provider of care domestic work in the homes, where they have been confined, renouncing their own freedom of movement and social interaction. They have been responsible of the domestic work, resulting in a non-stop working days during the lockdown. So I'd like to conclude by the immigrant population working in Spain has low qualified jobs and precarious conditions, which is associated with the lack of stability and excessive working hours. The lack of the training on occupational health safety and lack of labor rights are related to a low identification of work risks that seem to have a negative impact on the health of immigrants. Women have been the main provider of care and domestic work in the home where they have been confined during the COVID pandemic, helping to sustain the life of families and vulnerable elderly people they have looking after. To do this, they have had to renounce their own freedom of movement and social interaction to a great degree than the rest of the population, also affected by the restriction imposed due to the pandemic, in many cases at the expenses of losing their jobs. Finally, the implications for occupational health practice are occupational health professionals and managers should provide occupational health safety training to immigrants, as it can improve the identification of occupational risks and health problems they are exposed to, resulting in lower costs of the government and minimizing the overload of the healthcare system in the future. The government should encourage the participation of immigrants in occupational health safety training, and to achieve this goal, should make this information more available to the community using different media platforms. The authorities must identify vulnerable groups, such as immigrant caregivers, through adequate detection, time referral, and specific promotion of early intervention. Thank you all for listening. It was a pleasure being here today. Thank you so much.